Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial I just want to show you the CURL tag because what I want to do is I've got at the moment a site here, a web application that outputs a grid of images, and I want to make it so that when I click on one of these images it goes back to the controller and tells the controller to display another page, and on that other page we'll just see the image by itself. With maybe something to rate it or something, which will give us a chance to do some SQL updating. But in this tutorial I just want to show you how you handle URLs, or a good way to handle URLs in JSTL. So with a URL, like, we've got a couple of problems. Like, I could just put a hard code, an href tag around this image, but one problem is, like, I've got to deal with the context root. And another problem is that I might want to append the session ID if the user has cookies turned off. If I care about making my site work when cookies have been turned off, then as we saw earlier, I'm going to need the JSession ID in there. And the CURL JSTL tag will handle both of these things for us. So I'm going to say C:URL, and let's just use the autocomplete if I can. C, there we go. And actually you can specify URL parameters as separate tags between the two CURL tags, but I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to specify them directly in the value of the CURL tag. So for that reason I'm making a self-contained tag with a closing slash just there. Now before I go any further, I want to go to web.xml, and at the moment the home page of my site is this controller file, but I think it would look prettier, because I'm going to have to use this in the URL, if it was called gallery. So I'm going to look at the URL pattern of my servlet mapping here and change it to gallery, and I'm also going to change the welcome file here to gallery, and that's going to mean that if I run my website at the actual context root, if I go to the context root like this, then this is still going to work. Ignore that for the moment. And also if I go to /gallery, I'm going to get this, which is my home page for the moment, but that's actually mapping to the servlet, so I can get it to display what I want. So I've got my CURL in here, and I'm going to add in here a URL. I don't need to put the context root in here because CURL will do that automatically, as we'll see in a minute. But I'm going to put in gallery, which is actually the URL that maps to my servlet now, because I just changed that in web.xml. Action equals, let's call the action image, so that I can look at that parameter in the controller and forward to the appropriate JSP. And I'll have an ampersand here, and then I'll say image, and here I'll output the image ID using a expression language bit, and in here I'm going to output image.id. Image is my image is the name of the item in my results that are retrieved by SQL, and ID is the name of a column in my database that I'm now accessing. So if I look at that now, let's just run it and just do view source here. Let's just refresh it to make sure it's really worked, and let's have a look. You can see that we've got this URL, and I'm going to put that into a href tag. And actually one other thing that I need to do is, I was just trying to think, why doesn't the context root show up? And it's because I need to put slash at the beginning here to tell it that I mean relative to the context root. So I'm starting my URL with slash, and now if I run on server, there we go, we've got /picture_squirrel/gallery. So the CURL tag has added the context root automatically. And now let's turn that into a proper URL. So I'm going to put in here, I'm going to use that HTML tag href equals, and this is going to be my href. For some reason I've lost my cursor, but that doesn't matter too much. So let's just cut that end A and put that after the image here, and inside the table data tag there. So the structure of it looks kind of like this. The image is nested within a hyperlink, which is nested within a table data cell, and the href to form that I've used this CURL thing. And now the beauty of this is, now if I run this here in this browser, it's going to look the same, except there's a URL for each image. You can see that I could click on them, although it's not going to do anything in a moment. And there's no border around each image, which there would be by default, but that's just because I put in my style.css, I put this style here, image border is none, which has removed the kind of hyperlink border, which looks good for images. And now I just want to show you one more thing, I think, in this tutorial, which is if I go to a browser with cookies turned off, and let's just copy this URL. In fact, I'll go to the root here. So I've turned off cookies in my Google Chrome browser, and if I go to that page now, you'll see, hopefully you can see down here. Actually, let's just make sure I've refreshed and do view page source here. And if I look at the URL, in fact there's no JSession ID there, but I did think I had turned cookies off. Maybe I didn't. Let's see, there we go, now we're getting it. I think it was displaying a cached version, I'm not completely sure, but if I do view source now, and I have turned cookies off, and for that reason we do get the JSession ID being appended here. So that's it for this tutorial, I think. What I'm going to do, but I'll do this not on screen because it's boring and you've seen it before, but I'll go to my controller and I'll get the image action parameter. I'll get the action parameter there, and I'll say if the action parameter is image, forward to a new page, and I'm going to implement that page, and I'm going to show you some stuff involving SQL with that new page that we go to then when we click on this URL. And but I'll do that off screen. And so yeah, so basically the CURL tag, it puts the context root on automatically, and it will also add the JSession ID if cookies are turned off. So it's pretty handy. And that's it for this tutorial. Join me again next time, and until then, happy coding.